Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming. It's great to see you all here. My name is Andrew Rain. I'm the Climate Policy Director at Prairie Rivers Network. And it's great to see you all here for the turnout of Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition's introduction of the Power Act for downstate Illinois communities. The rapid and largely unchecked proliferation of data centers in the Illinois landscape is very real. The Power Act is a strong, smart, and bold response. This nation-leading legislation is designed to protect our water, energy, and ratepayers from the threats presented by energy and water-intensive data centers, from rising utility bills for customers to potentially thwarting Illinois' nation-leading climate goals. We're not going to let that happen. The Power Act will ensure the AI boom does not overrun Illinois communities. It will hold big tech accountable for their outsized impact on consumers and the environment, and it will ensure that our water and energy rates remain affordable. With it, Illinois can continue its climate leadership, and our success here will inspire and encourage other states to take action of their own. To kick things off, I'd like to introduce Representative Carol Ammons, a longtime champion of smart, sensible legislation for protecting water, especially the Mahomet Aquifer, ensuring energy affordability, equity, climate progress, and other issues that matter to all Illinoisans.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning. My name is Representative Carol Ammons, and I'm proud to represent the 103rd District of Illinois. I'm also proud to be here today with Prairie Rivers Network's office, alongside advocates of the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, to introduce this powerful legislation. The Power Act is a direct response to an incoming crisis. Communities across the state, including those in my district, are facing rising energy bills, threats to our precious water resources, and an increase in air and climate pollution as a result of the influx of energy and water-intensive data centers. If you read the News Gazette, you know we are hearing rumors of the 300-acre site on the edge of town. That's a big data center. We know more proposals are coming. I thought it'd be helpful to paint a picture of just what we're facing to describe how many proposals are in the queue here in Illinois. Orlando, Florida, is a city of about 350,000 people, which requires 1 gigawatt of energy to power the entire city. There are currently 28 gigawatts of data centers in ComEd territory and 16 gigawatts of data centers in Ammons territory in their interconnection queue here in Illinois. That means that the data centers waiting to connect to our grid plan need much more power than 44 Orlandos put together. You and I shouldn't have to pay for that, nor should we have to pay for the grid upgrades necessary to support these data centers. And I'm going to say that again. You and I should not have to pay for that, nor should we be paying for the upgrades necessary to support these data centers. Here in Champaign-Urbana, we know how precious our water resources are. The Mahomet Aquifer is the sole source of drinking water for our communities all across central Illinois. Data centers can use a huge amount of water, and our state has few safeguards to prevent over-withdrawal. We deserve basic transparency and to know that data centers won't jeopardize our water supplies. It's absolutely critical that our energy prices don't go up because of these companies, and that our water and our communities are protected from the potential harms. That's why we are working on this bill to ensure that our communities are not stuck holding the bag of this new technology landscape. The Power Act establishes common sense guardrails on data centers that will minimize this impact on our utility bills, our climate, and our water. We can and should bring new technologies and economic development to our state, but it can't be done at the expense of our people. The people of Illinois cannot afford to continue to bear the cost of this innovation. I urge my colleagues in the General Assembly to join me in supporting this bill so that we can drive a competitive race to the top for responsible data center investments. Let us get to work. Let us protect our communities. Thank you.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you, Representative Ammons. Up next is Lori McKiernan, volunteer member of Sustainable Springfield and the Coalition for Springfield's Utility Future, who will speak about the challenges communities are facing.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning. My name is Lori McCarran, and I'm a community advocate and member of the local Sangamon Valley group of the Sierra Club, Illinois. Over the past few months, I've been astounded and angry by the influx of data centers across Illinois and their disregard for the concerns of local communities. I'm here today to share a few stories about what local communities are experiencing in the face of these proposals to hopefully paint a picture as to why the Power Act is so crucial. Big tech corporations are rushing to cash in on the race to build AI data centers across the state and are truly impacting all Illinoisans. I've spoken with folks from Troy and Granite City in the Metro East, to my own neighbors in Sangamon County, to the southernmost part of the state down in Carbondale, and all the way up to Joliet in northern Illinois. In each of these communities, folks are scared about the impacts of these huge projects and well aware of the impacts they're already having on family utility bills. Most of all, folks are clear that our current regulations aren't enough to protect us from the potential harms or to make sure local communities have a real seat at the table as these projects are proposed. Thus far, data centers have lacked transparency and disregarded the local impacts these facilities will have on our communities. In DeKalb, the city posted an agenda the day before Thanksgiving last November, indicating there would be a public hearing on a proposed data center the following Monday. The city voted on that proposal 12 days later. That's how much advance notice the community got about their proposal. How can community members expect to educate themselves about the proposal and engage in a transparent process with just one business day's notice? In Sangamon County, folks are worried that the proposed data center will bring more harm and risks than benefits. We've heard horror stories about the Cyrus 1 data center in Aurora that ran on backup diesel generators for 3 days, polluting the air and causing a lot of noise. We're fighting for a community benefits agreement so that we have some agency in this conversation and so that we can protect our property values, health, and the quality of life. While many of the communities I've talked to are actively engaged in these conversations, there are many communities that don't have the resources to fight for local protections and transparency. That's why the provisions in the Power Act are so critical. They make these protections and transparency a baseline requirement for everyone. The Power Act requires data centers to transparently engage local communities in binding community benefits agreements and contribute to an intervention compensation fund that allows impacted communities to protect themselves from harm. It also prevents data centers from signing non-disclosure agreements with local governments so that none of these projects can move forward as backdoor deals without community input. If data centers want to continue coming to Illinois, they need to do so responsibly. The benefits need to outweigh the potential harms. We need more transparency, more guardrails, and more protections. The Power Act establishes these protections and is a critical step to ensure data centers can contribute more to our communities than they take away. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Up next is Kavi Chintham, the campaign manager for Illinois at Vote Solar, who will cover the energy policy components of the bill.
Good morning, y'all, and thank you, Andrew. As Andrew said, my name is Kavi Chintham. I am the campaign manager for Illinois at Vote Solar. We're a nonprofit advocacy organization working to make solar more affordable and accessible for folks across the country. I'm proud to be here today alongside other advocates and Representative Ammons and other advocates in the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition to introduce the Power Act. From here in central Illinois to the Chicago region and beyond, Illinois is seeing a rapid and unprecedented surge in electricity demand, primarily driven by data centers. That raises a simple but critical question. Who pays for that power, and what kind of energy system does it lock us into? If demand grows without clean energy keeping pace, the grid fills the gap with fossil fuels and imported power. That raises costs, increases pollution, and locks communities across Illinois into a more volatile and expensive energy system. Unchecked demand is both an affordability problem and a climate problem. When large new loads connect to our grid, utilities have to build new infrastructure, plan for higher demand, at peak especially, and secure more supply. Under today's rules, too many of those costs don't stay with the companies creating the demand. They get spread across everyone else's bills. At the same time, when demand grows faster than clean energy supply, Fossil plants run longer, capacity prices rise, and Illinois imports more electricity from out of state. Dirty power is expensive power, and ratepayers pay for it twice, once on their monthly electric bills and again through long-term climate and health impacts. The Power Act puts clear guardrails in place to protect both ratepayers and the climate. And these guardrails reflect what large energy users are already capable of doing today. The Power Act sets an achievable framework that, at its core, is about fairness. First, it makes sure data centers pay their own energy-related costs. If a facility needs new substations, transmission upgrades, or other grid investments to operate, those costs must stay with the developer rather than shift onto Illinois families. Second, the Power Act enables data centers to connect to the grid, but with flexibility. Data centers receive guaranteed service only in proportional to the new, additive, locally deliverable clean capacity they bring to the grid. Otherwise, they connect on a flexible basis during tight conditions. Put simply, flexibility means that if a large new demand would risk a brownout or price spikes for everyone else in the state, guaranteed power is not available at that hour. Third, the Power Act creates a race to the top by tying faster grid connection to the real grid value. Data centers that bring meaningful clean energy, capacity, and storage online are rewarded with faster interconnection because they're helping the grid instead of straining it. This shifts competition in the right direction, away from who can grab power first and toward who can be the most responsible energy customer. Taken together, these energy provisions reflect a simple truth. Affordability, reliability, and climate progress are inseparable. The Power Act is a roadmap for ensuring corporate and industrial growth contribute to, rather than undermine, affordability and the clean energy transition. The standards in the Power Act are practical and achievable, and they reflect the financial and technical capacity of hyperscalers. It's about doing things the right way and showing that Illinois can lead with fairness, public interest, and climate at the center. Thank you.
Thank you, Covey. Up next is Reverend Darnell Tingle, the Executive Director of the United Congregations of Metro East, who will speak to the concerns of frontline communities.
Good morning. My name is Darnell Tingle. I am the Executive Director of United Congregations of the Metro East. We are a faith-based organizing network building power across the Metro East and Southern Illinois, especially in communities that have been overlooked, overburdened, and underestimated. While I may not currently live in East St. Louis, I serve there every single day. I organize there. I sit in living rooms there. I hear directly from parents, seniors, and workers there. And what I hear consistently is communities across the Metro East and Southern Illinois have carried more than their fair share of pollution. They live next to landfills, next to highways, next to railroads, next to heavy industry. Children grow up with inhalers, elders worry about the water, and too often development happens to communities and don't involve communities. So let's be clear. When we talk about data centers, we're not just talking about technology. We're talking about whether Illinois will repeat a pattern of concentrating pollution in Black and brown communities, or whether we will finally say, not this time. Because without guardrails, data centers will worsen pollution in neighborhoods that are already overburdened. They rely on diesel generators that release soot and other matter. They increase energy demand in ways that undermine the clean energy goals committed to under CEJA. And we refuse to allow innovation to become another word for exploitation. That's why the Power Act matters. It closes the loophole that allows backup diesel generators to operate beyond true emergencies. It requires cumulative impact assessments before data centers can locate near environmental justice communities, because pollution is cumulative. I repeat, pollution is cumulative. Asthma is cumulative. Cancer risk is cumulative. Policy should reflect that reality. It guarantees transparent engagement and binding community benefits agreements. No more backroom deals. No more secrecy. If corporations want to profit in our communities, they must invest in them openly and equitably. And it creates public benefits and affordability to fund and ensure that families struggling with utility bills, shutoffs, poor air quality, and aging water systems see real investment. This is about moral responsibility, not just policy. This is about economic development without environmental justice. It is harm disguised as growth, and Illinois has an opportunity to lead, not just in innovation, but in justice. So pass the Power Act, protect our communities, and ensure that progress does not come at the expense of the people of Southern Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Darnell. Lastly, the Power Act creates critical safeguards for our water resources. Again, I'm Andrew Rain, the Climate Policy Director at Prairie Rivers Network. Water is at the heart of what we do at Prairie Rivers Network, protecting Illinois' water resources for all the people and wildlife that call this state home. Water is foundational to our economy, to our health, and to our ecosystems. The Power Act stays true to that mission, creating safeguards that will protect the waters that we all depend on, like the Mahomet Aquifer that supplies much of central Illinois and sits below our feet right now, or Lake Michigan that supplies water to Chicago and millions in the region, or the many rivers and smaller aquifers that supply communities across Illinois. Our state is uniquely vulnerable to the boom in water-thirsty data centers. Illinois water use laws are outdated and without meaningful checks on big users over-consuming our water. There's no meaningful oversight, no permitting system, no impact analysis, and no requirement to ask whether there is enough water right now, let alone in a hotter, drier future. Historically, Illinois has had abundant water resources, and that abundance is one reason why our laws were never modernized. There was usually enough going around, but change may be on the horizon. Today, February 12th, 100% of Champaign County and parts of 12 counties in central Illinois are in extreme drought conditions. Over 70% of the entire state is in drought conditions. And in recent years, barges were stranded on the Mississippi due to low water levels. Joliet depleted its aquifer and had to turn to Lake Michigan. Communities like Decatur and Bloomington are being asked to conserve water. Hyperscale data centers can withdraw millions of gallons of water, largely for cooling, and much of that water is evaporated and gone. The remainder may be polluted. The full impact of water use and water pollution on local communities is not fully understood. Protecting our water starts with transparency and accountability. Under the Power Act, data centers would be required to provide a water resources plan and reporting detailing how much water they withdraw, use, and discharge. They would have to evaluate more water-efficient cooling technologies and use methods at least as efficient as closed-loop cooling. And they would be required to identify and pay for the costs of new water infrastructure when it's needed. The Power Act also empowers the Illinois State Water Survey to assess the impacts of a data center on our water resources and report those findings to the public. Finally, the Power Act creates a new water impact permit administered by the Illinois EPA, which will determine if a data center would cause an adverse water resources impact and only permit projects that do not. And that's the Power Act. Amidst a boom of data centers, the Power Act gives Illinois the chance to lead on water, lead on energy, protect communities, keep utilities affordable, and align our growth with our climate goals. Let's get it done this session. Thank you.